favorite nerdy girl is back, Nerdygirlreviews, and we are reviewing I May Destroy You on HBO Max. Stay tuned for my commentary. Also, if you would like to see the full recap, you can find me on YouTube, and I'm also available on SoFreeForYourSoul.com. So stay tuned, and let's play this out. So, where do we begin? I know I'm late to the party, but again, like I said, I'm new to HBO, so I'm catching up on all the goodies that I missed out on during the summer of 2020. And we had the premiere of I May Destroy You. This is Michaela Cole's baby. This is, she was a screenwriter, writer, director, creator. She wore many hats for this series, and this is a 12-part fictional series based on her experiences. It's a really tough subject matter because it delves into her sexual assault. She herself had experienced. She had been spiked. One of her drinks were spiked. Her character, at least, that's how we are introduced to this subject matter. Our character of Arabella is a writer, a novelist that was quick to fame because of her Twitter rants that she would often have, and then it was able to kind of bring all those tweets together because people kept asking her for a book. So she was, an average citizen who turned into a novelist based on her notoriety on Twitter. So the first episode is just, someone who's going through the motions. Seems like she's in a very one-sided relationship. She's dating an Italian man by the name of Biagio. And she met him on a retreat, but that's on episode 3. And it seems, kind of one-sided because she seems like she wants to be in a more serious situation with him, and he's just too hot and cold with her. So she's on deadline, and as she is heading back, she's being pressured by her editors, and they keep constantly questioning her, like, when are you gonna bring those drafts in, girl, because time is ticking. So she's on deadline. She hasn't slept, finding any small distraction, and somehow she's contacted. Her friend Kwame does come through for her, and so does her friend Terry. These are her besties and her pillars in her life, and we see them throughout the series of being very ride or die for her. But she also has these acquaintances, friends that aren't so close, but they're more party friends, and she's finding a distraction. She just does not want to deliver with the drafts and is easily distracted by her friend Simon, who has his cousin who's visiting from the United States to the UK, and they want to show his last night. They want to have a great time for his last night in the UK. So in going, they find themselves, going to plenty of bars, a pub crawl, I guess, and they invite her, and though she's like, no, kind of like, I shouldn't, but she's like, F it, I'm gonna go. And in going, there's scenarios. I mean, who hasn't gone out and has found themselves in that kind of situation? It's really a scary thing when you're out there, because even though you're conscious, you're an adult, you know when to look out for red flags, but sometimes you can get swept in having a good time, especially if you're already inebriated. And she finds herself with a group of people that she's not really sure who they are. And she doesn't have the safety net of her 2 best friends. So there's a moment where it seems like we're introduced to a lot of characters, especially Simon. Simon already has his own thing kind of going on. He's married, and his wife is open to an open relationship, but he already has established a mistress, and that's the other female that is in this social setting that Michaela's character Arabella finds herself in this bar called Ego Death Bar. And before you know it, there's a moment where everything just blacks out, and we see our Arabella, who is just practically dripping, falling all over herself. She can't seem to stay stable. And then there's a moment where it all blacks out, and she's just back at the office where she had been trying to type out her draft. She showers. There's a big bump on her head with a major cut, and even though I guess she just assumed it was just a wild night, from what I gather and doing research, in the UK, it's recreational drugs are legal, so she just probably was like, well, maybe it was a small bump of coke or something to that degree, and that's why I knocked out, according again to the show. And mixed with alcohol, something must have happened, but she can't recall. She is able to meet her deadline, enters the drafts. I guess they're kind of okay, but she doesn't even know what she kind of like wrote briefly, and then finds herself in a position where she still doesn't. She keeps having these flashbacks of somebody hovering over her, and she can't really piece it together. She's like, what's that about? Is it because of the lack of sleep, or am I under stress? And then it doesn't click for her into the second episode until her friend brings up, like, how did you smash your phone? And why do you have that cut on your head? And then it starts to kind of come together, piece together. And she's quick to call her friend Simon because he was the last person that she remembers that she was with. And, even though he's in kind of like a sticky situation with his mistress and his wife, and she doesn't want to be involved, but she keeps asking him, like, how did this happen? So, like, I fell, my phone crashed, it's all cracked. What happened? You must have those details. Oh, it was this. We took an Uber, we did this, and whatever. And in pursuit of all this, she finds out that at first she had questioned if it was even Simon that had done something, that she wasn't in a safe situation with Simon, but then realizes that it wasn't the case, that it was a perfect stranger. And when she realizes this, she's already, she realizes that she was spiked, and she does go to the precinct to report it. And the two investigative agents that are on the case kind of make it clear for her, even though at first it seems like she's in denial. So this is really hard subject matter for her to have found just some kind of sanity, and it wasn't bogged down by depressions. There are moments where she finds herself vulnerable. She is crying. But there are other moments that are kind of paired off to her life, just kind of dealing with it. And so that's what's refreshing about this series, because it's not like she's normalizing what has happened. What's happened to her is great tragedy, but she's able to kind of deal with what is happening. And still, manage her life. And she's still a writer. She still has to make a living. Her friends are there. You can see also her great relationship with Terry. My birth is your birth. My death is your death. They have a real ride or die relationship. I love those two, especially when she goes on retreat, and that's episode 3 when she meets her quasi boyfriend, Biagio, basically a drug dealer, who they happen to bump into while they were just trying to have a good time in Italy. He sells them a bunch of junk, and they end up going crazy at the club. And I appreciate there were moments of reality that I don't think we've ever seen on TV. And I think that in itself was so innovative. that yeah, there's some women that will indulge in having, and she admits it, that she had never had sex on her period, but it is something. These are taboo subjects that for some reason Hollywood never wants to showcase, and that's like not a part of being human, but it does happen. I know they went a little far when it came to him like staring at a blood clot. That was a little much. That was a little much. But, hey, I wouldn't put it past most men being curious. It's not something that they produce, it's not something that comes out of their bodies. So, but she really went there with her writing. She goes through the ups and downs through having to cope. She seeks therapy, and then she also seeks even group therapy. She's introduced to an adult version of an old, I guess, high school or middle school student. They weren't friends, but they knew of each other. That's Theodora. But you realize that per episode we're going down different facets of what is considered sexual assault. That maybe a lot of us weren't even privy to. Situations she finds herself also with another writer who's supposedly helping her, an Ivy Leaguer, who's been privileged his whole entire life. And then there was forms of him also being pervy and also nervy and basically a rapist and other degrees of being a rapist. So we discover that through these 12 episodes. Now I'm dressed in all black because of after she recovers, and there's a bit of rage that happens to her, how she also depends on social media because social media had been her solace. I think it's episode 8 or 7 where they tell her that 9 months had passed and that they really weren't going to do anything when it came to the person that they suspected had raped her. They didn't have enough evidence. So I think that sends her in a tailspin, and her only safe haven for her was to go to this guy that isn't necessarily her boyfriend. They had a great first romantic time, and maybe they've spent some weekends together, but nothing official. Plus, when she goes through this whole really traumatic experience, he wasn't really there to have her back. Like, he kind of blamed her. We also see a very patriarchy perspective here of how, the woman is always, blamed, and you should have known better. Your eyes should have been everywhere. When you're intoxicated, there's no way in hell that could have happened, but they never blame the person who committed the crime, but rather just the victim. You should have known better. Here's her quasi-boyfriend who should care for her, and I think he may have, but he had his own hang-ups and his own issues, lost his own mother, and he was all a bag of mess, and that he wasn't going to be helpful in this situation. So when she's trying to find solace and runs to him, he basically tells her that it's over, literally by gunpoint. I mean, it's crazy, but it's not so far-fetched. I've heard stories like this my entire life, so I was honestly shocked, but also pleasantly surprised, because finally somebody was telling these authentic stories, and it's being projected on, national, global syndication. So, so aside from that, then, so I'm wearing all black. Getting back to the last episode is when it's called the Death of Ego Bar, I believe, and this is where the crime happened, and she finds some kind of, she's trying to cope yet again with what has happened to her, and she felt if in going to the bar she might eventually bump into this assailant, this man, this rapist who committed this hideous crime with her, and then we are introduced to 3 different scenarios, and at first you're kind of like, what is happening? And so the first scenario I loved. As you can see, I donned my black because she has this whole, like, you would have thought it was a Mission Impossible thing that she had hatched in her head. She was gonna get her revenge, and in this scenario she does. Essentially she does. She's able to kind of play it off like, she was going to be his victim again, puts herself in this uncomfortable situation, but bears with it because she was going to get her revenge. And again, all of us who have had, some kind of I can't say the same. It can't be comparable to what she even went through. But if we've ever been wrong, we've always had that imagination like, what wouldn't I do if I had you right in front of me? You would pay every price. She literally bludgeons him to death in the first scenario. Second scenario, I think she has more of an understanding of why he committed the crime, and they speak more on a humane level, but he's arrested. Her friend goes out of her way to like get this man arrested in the second scenario, and then the third scenario it becomes more of a romantic situation. I guess she sees him, not that she's seeing him in a romantic light, but I think she's trying to make peace what has happened with her. So the best way to kind of maybe even put it past her was to kind of merge all of this energy together, even via lovemaking, to say goodbye to it. So there's some like relief and release for her. So she is able to finish her book finally, and she releases it independently. So she gets to keep all her coins, and it was just honestly, I was really impressed. And I've seen her work before. I've seen her on Black Mirror. That's mostly where she's known for. But I think she's also has another show she wrote called Chewing Gum that I'm gonna check out and review as well. But I'm a Michaela fan. I love the introduction of such a multi-ethnic cast. We saw so many African UK actors, which we rarely see, because we only see one facet when it comes to the UK. But I think that happens with a lot of international countries. We just see one face, and this was refreshing to see. To see Black story taking place in the UK through this brave lens, feminist lens. Truth telling and so forthcoming, that these are things that happen. This is not so out of reach and far-fetched that you can't. And how many stories have we even heard amongst ourselves, amongst women, have we heard these scenarios? So to actually see it on the screen, see projected in mass media, that was honestly a bravo. And I really hope that she gets all the accolades that she deserves. Again, soundtracks too. She featured a lot of African artists. She knocked this series out of the park. I believe she may be nominated for a SAG award and an Independent Spirit Award, the NAACP. I'm praying for that Emmy, because honestly, she is a talented writer, screenwriter. The woman is just phenomenal. So I give it 2 thumbs up. I honestly encourage everybody to watch it. I think honestly it's also a great conversational piece. You can start to have conversations even with maybe your young adult children, and